Hello, friends and neighbors. My name is Matt Murphy, not Brian Wilson, in for Brian today on this middle-of-the-week Wednesday edition of The Drive, June 19, 2024. We've lots to do and lots to get into and 4 hours to do it. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. I appreciate it. I know Brian appreciates it. Chris Weber behind the glass appreciates it. Jay Harper appreciates it. I can speak for all of these folks. We're all very appreciative because only one group of us get a paycheck to be here, and you're not that group. So we thank you more than you can possibly know, and we appreciate your time and consideration today. We've got 4 hours, as I mentioned, and I would love for you to participate in said same by dialing us up at 615-737-9986 at any given moment. If you have a comment or a question or a concern or a thought about topics of the day, I open the phone lines up wide open. The door is wide open for the full 4 hours, and you're invited to be a part of the show. You can also participate on the membersnutrition.com super text line at 615-737-9986. Very same telephone number that you can reach us either via phone or via text, and you're invited to do so. Let me get the pleasantries out of the way real quick, as I do on my show day to day. If you miss me during the midday, if for some reason you're just getting into your car at 3 o'clock, unaware that I do a show from noon until 3, well, I do a show from noon until 3. Not today. Jennifer Sheets capably filling in for me today. I'm in for Brian Wilson today. I'll be in 1 week from today on the 26th, and then there's some other stuff later on in the summer that we'll tell you about at a later time. So normally I'll shift over here when Wilson is out gallivanting, as he is wont to do. Not gallivanting this week is Chris Weber. He's behind the glass. What does Brian call it? Pressing all the blinky buttons, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's basically what you do.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
How's it going?
Yeah, I haven't pushed the wrong one yet, so I'm doing okay. Off to a good start.
What's up with the I don't know that we've ever talked about this. I know you're a Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah.
And we have a kinship in that regard.
Right.
What's up with that shirt that you're wearing?
What's wrong with my shirt?
I didn't say that there was anything wrong with it.
It's a Chicago Cubs logo.
Mm-hmm. And are you a Cubs fan?
I am a Cubs fan, yeah. My father is from Chicago.
Okay.
My mother's from Georgia. Okay. So I got the Chicago professional sports gene, but I grew up in Georgia, so I'm a Georgia Bulldog.
So being a Bulldog fan was not long suffering enough for you, so you decided to be a Cubs fan as well when you were growing up, which was pretty tough, I imagine.
It was pretty tough until a few years back, and we finally got one. So I'm okay now.
Well, I learned, that's what I learned today.
Something new.
You learn something new every day. I did not know that you were a Cubs fan. Well, congratulations for that. It's probably... I don't know. Is it better than being a Braves fan right now?
Well, right now it's probably pretty neck and neck. They're both kind of sucking.
Yeah, kind of suck. I mean, injuries just absolutely killing us. Don't look at me, Harper. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what you're doing back there. I don't want to know what affiliation you are. I see you back there. All right. Anyway, Chris is back there for you, screening your telephone calls and generally speaking, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as possible. And on occasion, he's going to weigh in and get me course correct, get me back on track. And that's always a good thing. There's lots to get into today, and I want to start here. There's breaking news happening out of the state of Louisiana. And I understand that... Well, I'm just curious where you are on this. I have a different perspective on what I see as the role of government when it comes to my religious faith. And so I anticipate that perhaps there will be a divergence of opinion with regard to this subject. But I think that makes for a good topic of conversation getting you home in the afternoon on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So we're going to get into this situation out in Louisiana in just a moment. After I mentioned to you that it's episode 594 of mine, I do this every day, and it's for those watching on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you're normally watching Brian Wilson at this time, you don't get a chance to watch me. I do not normally look this long and shaggy. Let me explain to some of you watching on Super Talk TV what's happening. You might notice that I have something of a hippie vibe going on. I look similar, and I look like... If you guys remember when Chris Weber had that long COVID hair, I look like his fat older brother. I mean, I think that's fair.
Can you flip? Can you give it a flip now?
I can do it.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, look at those locks.
Slow that down.
Now you look like Gary Busey's mugshot.
I just made myself very dizzy. I can't do that. I shook my head back and forth. I imagine that I look like Farrah Fawcett from the 1970s. Sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I just made myself dizzy. I decided to commit. On March 1st, I made a commitment to the listening audience, to the United States of America, and the world, that I was not going to cut my hair again until we had a new president-elect. So that is how cocksure I am that Donald Trump's going to win this election on November 5th, and I will be in a hair salon somewhere on November 6th. But until then, I'm not cutting a bit of it. Now, there was a little bit of a controversy on the Matt Murphy show when I asked if it was okay if I got a trim. And I was just asking. I made a commitment not to cut my hair. I said, can I get it shaped up? Can I get it trimmed? This is when we thought we were going to the RNC. I don't think we're going to the RNC. I think there's a lot of hoops and things to jump through there that's not worth our time. One way or the other, I've not cut my hair since March 1st. So it's Locks for Trump Day, number 109 for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we're going until we have a new president-elect, whether that's November 5th of 2024 or November 6th of 2028 remains to be seen. I expect that I'll get a respite in there somewhere. I did carve out a loophole that if, God forbid, Joe Biden is elected president again, I don't know why he would be, but if he is, by hook or by crook, if Kamala Harris takes over, which all of us expect that would happen, then I can cut my hair, because then that's a new president.
See, that's
you see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping it doesn't come to that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I grow it out and I complain about it until such time as Donald Trump is president-elect of the United States of America again on November 6th. I will be getting my hair cut. One way or the other.
You're getting it all shaved off, is what I hear. It will be shaved.
Is that what you're hearing?
That's what I've heard.
Is that word on the street?
That's the word on the street.
Well, okay. Well, those mean streets, they can lie to you now. They get a lot of times what you're hearing on the street. Rumor mill is nasty mistress. Did Brian talk about his day off today?
He did not.
Okay. Well, Brian. All right. Well, then very good. Well, you and I just got the thumbs up from Cabana Wife.
Oh.
Everything's fine. Okay. Everything's A-okay. Yeah. I think he had an appointment that he had to get to.
That's
and
true. Yeah.
Everything's all good. So I just didn't know, but I'm giving everybody the thumbs up for those in the know. And for those not in the know, I'll let Brian Wilson tell you when he comes back tomorrow on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay. So I believe faith supersedes force. I believe that your spiritual faith, your religious faith, supersedes any law of man with regard to your communication, your connection with, your relationship with God. This subject often came up during the Roe v. Wade period of American history, which thankfully has been put into the dustbin of history. That no amount of law demanding that there be an allowance for an abortion is going to change my relationship with God based on what I think abortion is and what I think consequences are for those who choose to go that path, certainly on the regular. So when I say faith supersedes force, it means to me that my relationship with God is not altered in any way based on the laws of man. And secondarily, sometimes I believe that it is not up to man or government to determine certain aspects of what I would consider to be my religious faith. In other words, there are certain immoral things that happen on this earth that I don't think should be against the law. I believe that God, in his infinite wisdom, will handle that in his own time and in his own way. God saw fit to give us free will. And I'm not trying to teach a class on religion or theology because I certainly couldn't. And I don't pretend that I could. But I would suggest that there are things that happen on this earth that while they should not be illegal because God gave us free will to do as we will, they are certainly probably going to be judged a little bit differently when the time comes. I say that to establish kind of a baseline of what I want to talk about when I discuss what just happened in Louisiana. Now, you might recall, maybe you were catching up with the news. I briefly mentioned this on my show. I don't know if Brian manage to get to it with so much going on in the news. But we had a guest in our state earlier in the month. On June 15th, there was a statesman dinner. The Tennessee Republican Party holds an annual statesman's dinner. And, state party executives and lobbyists and politicos and about 1,200 state lawmakers gathered at the Music City Center for the 47th annual Tennessee Republican Statesman's Dinner. Among the, I don't know what happened. I mean, obviously,
I'm sure your invitation just got lost or something.
Yeah, maybe they sent it up to the campground where I used to stay.
That's probably it, yeah.
You know what? It's probably at the RV park. That's probably where it is. They didn't realize that I'd gotten out to Mount Juliet. But U.S. Senators Marsha Blackburn was there. Bill Hagerty was there. Obviously, they're on Donald Trump's leadership team. They were stumping for Trump. And, a myriad of other lawmakers were downtown Nashville the other night. And the keynote speaker was Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. And he made a mention, and I saw this in the news, and I'll be honest with you, I did not connect the dots and put two and two together. But Landry made a mention about the Ten Commandments and how things were about to change in Louisiana politics with regard to the Ten Commandments in the Bible. He headlined the event, claiming the Democrats have held a double standard on applying justice. True. Cited 2 Democrat-led impeachments of former Donald Trump. Yep, I'm with you there. Unsuccessful Republican-led impeachment on Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And went on to talk about the guilty verdict in the Trump hush money trial, not the hump trush money trial. And toward the end of his speech, he made mention of what he was planning on doing in his home state when he got back. Well, he's now done it. Louisiana has become the first state to require that all 10 commandments, the 10 commandments, not all of them, well, all of them, but the 10 commandments be displayed in every public school classroom under a bill signed into law today by Republican Governor Jeff Landry. I want snap reaction at 615-737-9986. The GOP drafted legislation mandates that a poster-sized display of the 10 commandments in, quote, large, easily readable font, end quote, be required in all public classrooms from kindergarten to state-funded universities. Although the bill did not receive final approval from Landry, the first time for gubernatorial action to sign or to veto the bill has lapsed. So he signed it. Let's see. Although the bill, this is from the Associated Press. Let me understand this. Although the bill did not receive final approval, it has now become law. He signed it into law. That sentence by the Associated Press doesn't make any sense, but on we go, onward and upward. Opponents of the legislation, according to AP, questioned the law's constitutionality, warning that lawsuits are likely to follow. They are. Proponents say the purpose of the measure is not solely religious. Really? Really? In the law's language, the 10 Commandments are described as, quote, foundational documents of our state and national government, end quote. The display, which will be paired with a 4-paragraph context statement describing how the 10 Commandments were, quote, a prominent part of American public education for almost 3 centuries, must be placed in classrooms by the start of the 2025 school year. The posters will be paid for through donations. State funding will not be used in any way to implement the mandate, avoiding this possibility of claiming that this was some sort of state-funded religious practice. That based on the language of the legislation. The law also authorizes but does not require the display of the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, and the Northwest Ordinance in K through 12 public schools. Can I tell you something? I might be embarrassing myself. I'm well familiar with the Mayflower Compact. I'm well familiar with the Declaration of Independence. I don't know that I know what the Northwest Ordinance is. You ever heard of that? No? I got a shrug from Weber, so at least I got one on my side.
I didn't pay attention much in school.
Yeah,
so
you know.
I forgot. Probably. Maybe I knew it.
Maybe so. I mean, Northwest Ordinance, that has something to do with the Oregon Trail. I played a lot of Oregon Trail when I was in school.
Now that I could tell you all about.
Yeah, you have died
of dysentery.
I have the shirt. You would love that shirt. I have the T-shirt that's got the old school graphics on there.
Oh, yeah.
You have died of dysentery. Okie dokie. I knew what dysentery was long before I knew what the Northwest Ordinance was. Not long after the governor signed the bill into law, several civil rights groups and organizations, I mean, this just happened hours ago, that want to keep religion out of government promised to file a lawsuit challenging it. The law prevents students from getting an equal education, they say, and will keep children who have different belief systems from feeling safe at school, which is garbage. The American Civil Liberties Union, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation said in a joint statement that they plan to sue. Quote, even among those who may believe some version of the Ten Commandments, the particular text that they adhere to can differ by religious denomination or tradition. The government should not be taking sides in a theological debate. Similar bills requiring the Ten Commandments to be displayed in classrooms has been proposed in other states, including Texas, Oklahoma, Utah. Where are we at, Tennessee? Where are we at? However, the threats of legal battles over the constitutionality indicates that most states are loath to pass the measure because they understand that it will lead them to lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. In 1980, so I'll tell you what, I'll take a break as we're just getting underway on the drive. No Brian Wilson, Matt in for Brian. I'll give you some of the history of the way that the Supreme Court has ruled in certain cases regarding the Ten Commandments. I'll give you my take on it and take your take on it on the telephones. I asked for a snap reaction to this. 615-737-9986. It's The Drive. No Brian. Matt in for Brian on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Growing concerns about another war front in the Middle East. And all clear in Clarksville now as authorities dealt with a possible explosive device this morning. We'll have the latest on that. We'll also have other stories at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the drive in progress. There's Jay Harper. I'm Matt Murphy. Brian Wilson off today. Chris Webber's behind the glass. That's the lay of our land. All right, so we'll get to your calls here moments right after Jay's newscast. I don't want to rush anyone, and I've only got about a minute. So the Louisiana state legislature passed a bill, and it has been signed into law by the governor of said state. By the way, for all of you super texters, I got it. The Northwest Ordinance. See, I was thinking, Washington State, Oregon. See, that's silly. That's silly. What was the Northwest back in the 1700s?
Like Tennessee?
Well, we were kind of middle. It's like
further north?
Great Lakes
All
region,
right. Yeah, the Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest, yeah. Indiana, Illinois, Michigan. And it has to do with the creation of that territory during the Articles of Confederation in 1787. Which, did anybody else in school, did they not, does anybody else feel this way? That they just skipped that period of history? It's like 10 years where we went from, I distinctly remember in history class, in American history class, they're really focused on the Continental Congress and the formation of the Declaration of Independence and war with Great Britain and, the Tories and the Patriots and all of that stuff. And then we succeeded and we conquered them. And then they said, and we created the Articles of Confederation. That didn't work. Flash forward to the Continental Congress or the Constitutional Congress 10 years later. You don't really talk about the Articles of Confederation that much. But anyway, this happened during that time. So they've passed a law commanding, no pun intended, that every classroom have a version of the Ten Commandments. I don't know what the version looks like. The version that I am working with, and I don't want to get into a big debate on this, is I'm going to go over those 10. And we can break it down any way you want to. Anything that gets us back to a more faith-based society, I'm all for. But here's what I've always said about prayer in school. Here's what I've always said about religion in school. We don't have enough religion in the home. We don't have enough prayer in the home. I don't need the government superseding the authority of the parents when it comes to religion and religious faith. Government screws up just about everything it touches. Why in the world would we want it to screw up faith? That's my initial take on this. I'll get yours in a moment, right after Jay Harper's News. It's 3:31 on Super Talk.
Yes, it is 3:31, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got clouds. The temperature kind of been going up and down depending on cloud cover. We're at 86 degrees now on Music Row. We'll get a complete forecast and a traffic report here in a little bit. Clashes across Israel's northern border with Lebanon continue, with Israeli defense forces exchanging fire with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The fighting is stoking the fear that Israel could now become locked in a second potential war with an Iran-backed militia group. Here's ABC's latest from Beirut.
The concern is still there that each new strike might perhaps bring this region closer to a much wider war. A provocative speech by Hassan Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah, threatened Cyprus if they allow Israel to use their airports for any type of operation or assistance in the event of a military offensive here.
That is Marcus Moore reporting. Back here in Middle Tennessee, the Clarksville Police Department, they've deemed that area of Avalon Street between Fort Campbell Boulevard and Sevier Street safe after a possible explosive device was found in a car at a Clarksville scrapyard early this morning. No word yet, though, on whether that device was actually an explosive or not. In a statement, the Clarksville Police Department said that the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office District 7 Bomb Squad conducted render-safe procedures and the device is no longer a threat. The statement went on to say that it's still an ongoing investigation and they have no other information to release at this time. That is the latest news, traffic and weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It is The Drive, 3:38. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson until 7 o'clock this evening. 615-737-9986, either via super text or telephone call. So breaking news this afternoon, the governor of the state of Louisiana has now signed a law, or signed a bill into law, more specifically, that requires that every public school classroom in the state of Louisiana have a poster-sized version of the Ten Commandments in their classrooms. Louisiana becoming the first state to require that to be displayed in every public school classroom under the bill signed by Governor Jeff Landry earlier this afternoon. Your snap reaction, 615-737-9986. Dave is in Hendersonville. Dave, what are your thoughts?
How you doing there, Matt?
I'm good.
I think it's an excellent idea. I think they should have taken it out. And if they taught it in school, I believe our kids would be much better off now. There would be less violence. The kids wouldn't be the way they are now. I firmly believe that. Once they took God out of school, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made.
When do you feel like, Dave, they took God out of school?
I'm sorry?
When do you feel like that happened? Just curious where you think that
I'm
started.
68. I believe. I think it happened sometime in the 80s, early 80s.
So, all right. I mean, I want to get as much of your reaction without any sort of. I don't want to debate it. I just want to get the reaction to begin with. Because I hear that a lot, that once they took God out of school, and I don't know exactly when that happened. I remember going to church. I remember going to Sunday school. I remember going to Wednesday night service. I remember going to Bible school. I don't remember being taught anything about religion in school. And I was born in 1973. And I'm of the belief that the faithful should not look to the government to teach their children about religion. I'll just lay it out there where we can graze on that. I understand why this is a positive development for many of you. I don't know what effective change it's going to cause in the real world. I'm appreciative of the Ten Commandments. I'm respectful of the Ten Commandments. I try to be respectful of the Ten Commandments as much as I possibly can. I probably do a little more violation than I'd like to admit. For those that need to know, the 10, as I see them, and I don't know how they're going to list them in the state of Louisiana because there are some differences among the different faiths, the Christian faiths. But thou shalt have no other gods before me is number 1. These are all from Exodus. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. That's the idol one. That's number 2. Worship God. Anything you worship more than God is a graven image. All these sports fans need to listen up. Number 3, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Pretty self-explanatory. Number 4, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. Sunday or the Sabbath. Some would suggest that Saturday was the Sabbath at one point, but whatever, I'm not getting into that. Number 5, honor thy father and thy mother. Number 6, thou shalt not murder or kill. I've seen it both ways. Simple, but important. Number 7, don't commit adultery. Number 8, don't steal. Number 9, false witness against thy neighbor. Don't do that. And number 10, don't covet. Are we on the same page with all of those? Good pieces of advice, good rules to live by, good commandments to live by. But half of them, and I'm just throwing it out there, about half of them are specifically religious in nature, right? Is that the business of the state? And what happens when you have an Islamic teacher teaching your kids? Are they going to start teaching your kids about different types of religion? Are you comfortable with that? Because, I mean, like I say, all of them are all well and good. I'm just throwing it out there that no other gods before me, idols, graven image, name of the Lord in vain, Sabbath and keeping it holy. Those 4 are specifically religious in nature. And there's really no way around that. Now, I'm not to say that that's a bad thing. I'm just here to suggest that when we introduce that into the classroom, you're introducing other religions into the classroom as well that maybe are not of a Judeo-Christian nature. Greg is in Chapel Hill next.
Introduce that into the classroom.
Hey, Greg, turn that radio down, buddy.
Into the classroom as well that maybe are not of a...
All right, Greg, you're going to hear me say turn that radio down in about 5 or 6 or 8 seconds, and I'm going to go back to you when you do, and hopefully you've got it turned down by then. Hey, Greg.
Craig.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Craig. Hello, how are you?
Shoot, driving through Murfreesboro. Crazy, man, crazy.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ten Commandments. I think it's a good thing. And, you know, one of the questions you asked is, you know, where have we lost? And, you know, I think the Ten Commandments is a good thing to put inside the school systems, but, you know, it's kind of, they're putting it at the finish line. You know, you got to start at the starting line, and the starting line starts at home. And
Amen,
you kind of ask where we've lost it. You know, kind of, I mean, you're kind of at the same age as we grew up listening to AC/DC and groups like that. And, you know, we could listen to heavy music on Saturday night, but on Sunday morning we knew we had to get up and go to church. You know, even we was listening to Grateful Dead.
That's pretty good, Greg.
So, I mean, you know, I think social media has really became the third parent, and it's taken away the authority figure. And, you know, until parents make kids put down the phones and get back to reality and become parents and stop becoming the best friends of their kids. And we got to go back to basics. I ain't saying we got to be so strict on kids that they turn against us. But, you know, we had to get them ready for life. And I tell you, life is tough, and life will punch you in the mouth quick if you're not ready for it. And, you know, I'm proud of my son. You know, he's just turned 22 years old. He got through building his own house. And, you know, I got his hardship license when he was 14 years old, and he got a job. And, you know, again, it's all about how you raise your kids and how you talk to them. But today's young generation, we are letting social media raise our kids. And when you say the Ten Commandments is wrong, and people are saying that, we've got some issues in this country.
Well, I don't suggest that the Ten Commandments are wrong. I think we need to get back to the Ten Commandments. Here's where I'm going to go on it, and this is going to upset a lot of people. But I've never been afraid of this, and I say this in love. I really do. Before you tell me that the Ten Commandments need to be posted in your public school, tell me where they are posted in your home. I mean, that's getting it down to it, is it not? I want patriotism in our schools. I want a love of country in our schools. I want reading, writing, and arithmetic in our schools. Look, I'm on notice, or I've put everyone on. The public school system as a system has failed or is in the process of failing. And we best be prepared to restructure all of it. It is a display. 8906 wants to know, is it teach or display? It is a display of the Ten Commandments, which will be challenged, which I don't know how big of an effect or an impact it will have. But I'm interested in comments and thoughts. It's big news. It's a big breaking headline that happened about an hour and a half ago. John is in Indiana. Hello, John. Good afternoon.
Hey, Matt. It's an absolute honor to be able to speak with you today.
Yes, sir. Glad to talk with you.
And by the way, Jennifer did an absolutely fantastic job filling in for you this afternoon. I just want you to know that and pass it along to her as well.
Thank you. I will.
my concern is, and you know, unlike you with the little L, I guess I'm kind of a closet libertarian. My thoughts, and I'm putting the word equity in air quotations, but does that mean that we're going to have to start including posters of things out of the Quran, or things out of the Torah, or things out of other religious materials? Are we going to have to post those as well?
Well, that will be the challenge, right? And Freedom from Religion Foundation and some of these other secular organizations will sue the state of Louisiana and demand that if you have a religious presence in our school systems, a Judeo-Christian presence within the school system, that you have a presence of other religious-based materials within the system as well, equally representing the Muslim faith or whatever. And the argument will be that we are largely a nation of Christian people. We are not a nation of Muslims by and large. We are not a nation of, the church of the flying spaghetti monster or whatever the hell it might be, right? So, and then in turn, the counter argument will then be, no matter the numbers and no matter the percentage breakout, these things have to be treated equitably. Otherwise, they should not by the state be treated at all. That's going to be the argument against these posters in schools.
I can remember going through school and the Ten Commandments was posted in certain classrooms, not necessarily all classrooms. And in fact, I grew up a military brat. On several of the posts that we were on, their school also had the Ten Commandments posted. And this was late 70s, early 80s.
No, I don't remember it in my. I mean, I'm getting a lot of people telling me that they remember it in their school. Thank you, John from Indiana. They remember it in their system. I don't remember it in my system when I was coming up, and I came up in the 1980s. I was born in 73, so I was in the schools throughout the 80s and graduated high school in 1991. So I was right there in that zone. Maybe I just missed it. Maybe it was somewhere and I didn't see it. But it was of no consequence to me. It was out of my field of vision, as it was out of the field of vision of all of the kids that were in our schools. I learned the Ten Commandments in my home. I learned the Ten Commandments in church. And I don't understand this desire. I don't begrudge it, and it's why I want to have the conversation, but I don't understand this desire, almost this demand to have it in the school, when if you have it in the home and you are teaching your children to be faithful and spiritual people through your own experience, through your own teachings, and through the teachings of others within your religious system, why do you expect the state to do that for you too? I've never understood it. The state doesn't do much well. The state doesn't do anything that I know of better than the private sector, or in this space, the religious sector. So why would we want the state to do this? What is the purpose? What's the purpose? What do you think the purpose is in putting it in the school system? Is to somehow have the state push or impress upon the parents that they need to be more religious at home? That's a good message. If that's the purpose, maybe I can accept that. I don't think it's going to end like you think it's going to end, though. It's 3:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mostly cloudy sky. We're at 87 degrees. A complete forecast and another traffic report are upcoming. Well, it's kind of becoming a will he stay or will he go? Now, former President Trump says he's going to stay in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention here in a few weeks after denying reports that he called Milwaukee a horrible city. Here's Perry Russum. He's in Washington.
Change of plans for former President Trump. Now his team says he will be staying in Milwaukee for the RNC in a few weeks.
I was the one that picked Milwaukee, I have to tell you.
Wisconsin will be a key state in November. One of the reasons it was picked to host the RNC.
I love Milwaukee. I said, you got to fix the crime. We all know that.
According to Milwaukee police, since 2022, homicides are down 40%. Non-fatal shootings are down 36%. Carjackings are up 31%.
Extreme weather conditions all over the country, and much of the eastern half is fighting to stay cool. Wildfires, a big concern out in the southwest. Smoke from one wildfire out in New Mexico nearly blocked out the sun. Authorities are calling for more evacuations. Here's ABC's Rhiannon Ally.
Hot and dry conditions are fueling at least 19 wildfires. At least one person has been killed in southern New Mexico. Thousands fleeing a fire there. At least 500 buildings damaged.
A different story on the Texas coast. Tropical storm Alberto is formed in the Gulf of Mexico as the first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. That started back on June 1st. Alberto is bringing gusty winds, heavy rain to South Texas, and hammering the Gulf Coast with a storm surge. ABC's Melissa Adon, she's in Corpus Christi, Texas.
South Texas communities are experiencing Tropical Storm Alberto, the first named storm of the season in Corpus Christi, Texas. In so many of the coastal communities across South Texas, the flooding threat is something that is always so severe. They're going to be on watch from Houston through Corpus Christi. This storm not making its landfall into Texas, but in Mexico. But Nueces County officials, emergency crews, having people prepared.
Now let's head to Omaha, Nebraska. The number 1 seed Tennessee Volunteer Baseball team, they're off to a good start in today's semifinal game in the College World Series versus the number 8 seed Florida State Seminoles. Currently, they're in the top of the 4th inning. The Vols out to a 4-0 lead. We'll keep you posted on the game throughout the afternoon. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
All right, it is The Drive. Brian Wilson not here today. Matt Murphy in his absence. Thank you for being around with us. 1 hour down and 3 to go. Good afternoon, folks. Hope you're doing well. Let's look outside. Looks nice outside. Actually, surprisingly cooler today.
Yeah,
when
it's not as bad.
About. No.
Yeah.
But it'll get back up there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Later on in the week, I fully expect by tomorrow or Friday, the weather meteorologist, our team of meteorologists will be advising you what clothing to wear and how to manage yourself in the afternoon hours. They like to do that from time to time, and I chide them for it.
Drink plenty of water.
And drink water. Better wear the loose clothing. Loose clothing, very important. Find shady spots in the afternoon. Keep hydrated. I'm thinking, I'm a 50-year-old man. I got here okay. I mean, I feel like I've done my work. And who are you talking to? I don't know.
Especially the people that regularly are out in the heat. They know what to do. They can handle it.
They figured it out a long time ago. All right, 408-615-737-9986. Many of you still on hold. We're carrying over a conversation from last hour, and I want to add to said conversation with a couple of other news items going on. Joe Biden is going away for a week, folks. He's going away for a week so that he can prepare for a 90-minute debate. Just let that sink into you for a moment. The President of the United States of America, the original, the one and only cheap fake. And I'm starting this. I started it. I was the first one to do it on social media. Go to my platform, at Matt Murphy Show. You'll see it right on the top of the page. Joe Biden, these White House officials that want to claim that Joe Biden, all of these videos about Joe wandering around, acting like a Roomba, just wandering around the stage, up and down, whatever. All of these videos are, quote, cheap fakes. That they came up with this language. I've never heard this in my life. Now, we know what a deep fake is and what they're trying to do, obviously. The difference between the deep fake and the cheap fake, they're trying to suggest to you that these are phony videos, that these are videos that don't really present the President of the United States of America. Not that they don't present him in the best light. They don't present at all what the President was actually doing. In other words, they want to suggest to you that these videos are fake instead of deep fakes, cheap fakes, right? I'm not about to be lectured by the same mainstream media that for 4 years of the Trump presidency and even before and beyond have consistently taken Donald J. Trump out of context on purpose for the purpose of making him look bad. These same media outlets, the MSNBCs of the world, the hashtag never CNNs, what a garbage network full of garbage people. Don't listen to them. ABC, CBS, NBC, all of the rest, Washington Post, New York Times. They consistently take the president of the United States at that time out of context for the purpose of making him look bad. There were good people on both sides. Oh, no, he called racist good people. No, he didn't. I could go down the list. There's a lengthy laundry list of times where they've done this. Now, if you want to say the same media outlets that have been doing it to Donald Trump for 7.5, 8 years now, if you want to suggest that we're doing that to Joe Biden, fine, do that. You tell us to believe you and not our lying eyes. But don't tell me this is fake. It isn't. You know who is? Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the cheap fake in the White House. And so hashtag Joe Biden is the cheap fake. I encourage you to use it on your social media platforms, at Matt Murphy Show, on a variety of those platforms. Okay. So there's that going on. We've got a case coming out of the Texas Children's Hospital that I'm going to get into in a little bit. I've got Congressman Scott DesJarlais. He's on the show coming up at 4:35. In studio, Congressman John Rose at 5:35. So we've got a show chock full of guest information and your telephone calls at 615-737-9986 in the absence of Mr. Wilson. So, I also have the candidates that are being vetted for vice presidential consideration on the part of Donald Trump. Trump is on the stump. I'll go over Juneteenth with you and what that means for the United States of America. It's a federal holiday. It became a federal holiday in June of 2021. Many of you taking the day off, I presume, if you are working in certain industry. And then your telephone calls about this late-breaking information. So it was breaking news about an hour and a half or 2 hours ago that the governor of Louisiana had signed a bill into law that is now requiring the placement of the 10 Commandments in poster form in all public school classrooms in the state of Louisiana. Republican Governor Jeff Landry signed the measure. It was a piece of legislation mandating that a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in large, easily readable font be required in all public classrooms from kindergarten to state-funded university. What this will accomplish? Well, I don't know what we're trying to accomplish, honestly. I'm being serious. It seems like we're trying to be half pregnant. If you're not going to have any sort of instruction in state-run schools regarding the material, then what's the point? The kids who have that instruction in their home don't need it in the school. The kids that need it in their home can't get it from their school. So maybe it just makes us feel better about all of it. We're going to finish up the conversation with the rest of your telephone calls, move on to some other things, but I wanted to give you an opportunity many of you have been holding, like Ron in Manchester, with thoughts on the Ten Commandments. Ron, welcome to The Drive. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What's going to happen, and you know it as well as I do, and I believe in the Ten Commandments, but it's beside the point. What's going to happen is somebody who's going to get offended is going to take this to federal court, and it's going to get struck down. And the governor really knows this, but he is going to make political capital out of it. Thank you, sir, for listening.
Well, of course, already there have been organizations. Thank you, Ron. Already there have been organizations that have not suggested, they've stated that they will be suing in court, declaring this to be a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution, which says, I mean, I repeat it all the time. You know what? It's funny. I learned the First Amendment of the Constitution in 8th grade, and I've never forgotten it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Over the years, the courts, including the United States Supreme Court, have taken that language to mean that any state-run organization or local municipality may not pick and choose winners and losers when it comes to religion, and what religions they promote or highlight and what religions they do not promote or highlight, regardless of the amounts of their citizenry which might follow those religious practices or the minuscule amounts of others that follow other religious practices. You understand, the numbers don't matter according to the law, because we're not a nation of the rule of the mob. We're a nation, we're a constitutional republic. As I discussed at length on my show recently, a constitutional republic being a form of democracy. And don't at me, bro, okay? Just don't. A constitutional republic is a form of democracy. There's two types of democracies. There's direct democracy and indirect democracy. Direct democracy doesn't work because direct democracy is the rule of the mob. That's what most people think of when they think of the word democracy. Indirect democracy is like a constitutional monarchy, a constitutional republic. There's some other forms. We're the best form, which is a constitutional republic, which believes in the rule of law as the standard of being, and then we elect people to fill in the blanks through legal statutes and basic rules of order. That said, the United States Supreme Court in 1980 spoke on this. They ruled that a Kentucky statute in Stone v. Graham was unconstitutional and a violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, because it lacked a non-religious purpose. The statute required the posting of a copy of the Ten Commandments on the wall of each public classroom in the state. Does that sound familiar to everybody? So what Louisiana is essentially doing is challenging Stone v. Graham. Okay, that's all well and good. I'm here for it. The court held that the Kentucky statute that required the Ten Commandments to be posted in school violated the First Amendment. To interpret said First Amendment, the court used the precedent established in Lemon v. Kurtzman and the three-part Lemon test. The court concluded that because requiring the posting of the commandments in public school rooms has no secular legislative purpose, it was, in fact, unconstitutional. The court approached the case through the lens created in Lemon and agreed that if Kentucky's statute broke any of the three guidelines offered in the Lemon test, the statute would violate the Establishment Clause. Lemon v. Kurtzman is a case that was argued in the United States Supreme Court. It was an 8-0 decision. It was argued in the 1960s, and I don't know exactly. I think it might have been early 1970s that it was argued. But it determined, it created the Lemon test, that the statute, the three prongs are that the statute must have a secular legislative purpose, the principal or primary effect of the statute must neither advance nor inhibit religion, and that the statute must not result in an excessive government entanglement with religion. There's a three-prong test there. Jared is next in Nash as I run through some of these, and we move on to other things in just a moment. Jared, good afternoon. How are you? What's your thought on this?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well, I mean, I absolutely believe in the Ten Commandments, but you know, I'm kind of on the fence as far as making it a requirement. But and I mean, you've already discussed all of the legal rabbit hole that they'll go down concerning that. But what about making it where a teacher can't lose their job if they choose to have the Ten Commandments in their classroom? I graduated in 1997, and the football coach from the high school that I graduated from was he was a believer, and he did prayer at the pep rallies and the games and things like that. And there were some students that objected to that and took it to court. And he lost the court battle, and he was given told that he cannot pray at pep rallies anymore. And his decision was to open a pep rally and say that I've been told I can't pray anymore, so I'm not going to. But if I did, this is what it would sound like.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so he pretty much I think he was just ready to retire anyway. Right. But you know, so we're talking about whose rights are being infringed upon here. So if a teacher wants to have the Ten Commandments in his or her classroom, not a requirement by the school or the district or county or state, but wants to have them.
Well, I mean, what if a teacher is of an Islamic faith and they post Islamic faith-based materials in their class, right? I mean, I could come up with a variety of scenarios that I think most of us would disagree with. I think it's easy to agree with the concept of the Ten Commandments. It's a lot harder to agree with certain tenets of other faiths that a majority of the American public don't follow. So I think there's a rabbit hole that we try not to go down when it comes to state interference with the freedom of religion and man's free will. And the easy way for me, the easy way to avoid most or all of this is to suggest that perhaps if we prayed more at home, we don't need to pray in the schools, in the public schools. That if we taught our children more about the Ten Commandments at home, if we have posters of the Ten Commandments or plaques of the Ten Commandments within our home, then our children are bringing those Ten Commandments in their hearts into the school system. It is far more important for me that you hold the Ten Commandments within your heart than it appear in any classroom in America. And it's far more impactful that way. This comes off to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, as performative altogether. If you're not going to instruct, if you're not permitted to discuss, then what are you doing? What are you doing? And if the child is not coming in with a foreknowledge of what we're talking about and discussing from the home, then I don't want the state to intervene and somehow supersede in the home-based instruction or lack thereof. That is up to the parents. And we cannot get to the heart of the parents through a poster in the school. Maybe I wish we could, but we can't. That's not the way to do it. Not through the state. State screws everything up. Government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. Somebody pretty important said that once. It's 422 on Super Talk.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
After one meeting between the U.S. and Israeli officials was canceled, well, they've scheduled another one they're trying to make up. We'll have today's closing money news as well. Those stories coming up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harper. Brian Wilson off today. Matt Murphy in for Brian. Chris Weber's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. I'm in the chair and on the air, as Mr. Wilson would say, although I'm right off the dead end of Music Row here in downtown Nash. It's beautiful down here. I wish you were here. And guess who will be here? Congressman John Rose will be in studio with us at 5:35 this afternoon. We'll ask John about the mental acuity of Joe Biden, whether or not that's a cheap fake, and other things. We also have, we get one or two more congressmen. We'll have a quorum. We got Scott DesJarlais coming up in about 10 minutes or so. You on the phones, we'll put a capper on this. Steven, I should say, is on the road. Hello, Steven. Welcome to The Drive.
Hey, man. First of all, you made my day. Joe Biden on a Roomba. I got to have a T-shirt made with that.
That's what he looks like, right?
Oh, my God.
He becomes
That's
a Roomba.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
What's on your mind there, Steven?
Religion in classes does not belong. I'm sorry. Some people may agree with it. I don't. What belongs in the classroom, just like it did when I was growing up in New York in the 60s and 70s, a flag, state flag, American flag, Pledge of Allegiance, and Star Spangled Banner. I turned out okay. That's exactly what they should be focusing on. Everything else is just asking for a fight.
Stephen, thank you for the comment. Thank you for the call. I'm trying to get to as many as I possibly can before we move on to some other subjects, because I'm going to move on to other topics here in just a moment. John's in Antioch. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Matt, for taking my call. I agree a lot with what you were saying, and I guess my thought is, and I'm old school, I'm pushing retirement age, and, we did have prayer in school when I was in school. We also said the Pledge of Allegiance, hand on the heart, facing the flag. That's how we started every school day. But I think we've gone from a nation of principles and concepts that we believed in to a nation of, if it feels good, do it. And we just let everything fly. And no, I don't think we should teach religion in schools, but I don't have a problem with, something like the 10 Commandments being posted in school. I do agree with what you said about if you're not teaching it at home, why should you expect them to teach it at school? But I feel like if our Judeo-Christian values, which is what this nation was founded on, if they're solid, if they're gold, if there's something to it, if that's why people are coming to this country, then do we not owe it to them to put that up and say, this is what we believe in, this is what makes this nation great, this is what makes this people different from most of the people of the world? Do we not stand up behind that?
Well, sure. I think we
take away from their freedom to worship as they choose.
Well, that's right. We all have free will. We are not a Christian nation. We're a nation of Christian people.
That is true.
Does that make sense?
And we do have that freedom of choice. And I mean, one thought is,
I never want. John, you mentioned prayer in school. What did y'all say? The Lord's Prayer? Do you remember?
Like I said, I'm pushing retirement age. It's been a day or two.
I mean, I understand, but I don't. So when people say, I remember praying in school, and sometimes I ask them and they get offended because they feel like I'm challenging. I never did it. And so I ask, well, what prayer did you say in school? Did you say the Lord's Prayer in school?
We may have done the Lord's Prayer. I do remember that each day a student would perhaps read a scripture or something like that. And if it was a prayer, it probably was the Lord's Prayer. But like I said, that was from like when preschool and elementary school. So it's way back.
And so if the state, and that goes to the heart of my concern, is when the state starts doing that, the state's going to want to treat all religious faiths equally. And so, I mean, even forget about, the Muslim faith or Buddhism or whatever. What about, the atheists that come into the class? Or forget about that for a minute. What about the differences between the Baptist and the Methodist and the Lutherans and the Episcopal? So I never remember, and I'm not judging your experience. I appreciate and love your life experience. I love everybody's life experience, but I just never remember questioning why we didn't pray in school because I went to church. I mean, I had a filled heart with my religious faith, and I brought the Ten Commandments into my school with my heart. I'm not saying I was perfect. I was far from it. Trust me. But I just feel like that's the way to do it. I feel like some folks who are I don't know. Thank you, John, for the call. It just seems awkward to me to demand that we get prayer back in school or get religion back in public schools, when I would suggest to you that the place that we've lost it is not the public schools. That's not what's affecting this country. That's not what affects the morals. That's not what is creating a spiritual crisis in the United States of America. Speaking of crisis, it's 32 after the hour. And there's going to be a crisis if I don't get to Jay Harper in the newsroom on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Past 4 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mostly cloudy sky. We are at 89 degrees. A complete forecast in Jack Womack's traffic coming up here shortly. One meeting canceled, but another one has been scheduled, with tensions running high between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the White House. The Biden administration canceled a top-level meeting with Israeli officials about Iran after the prime minister of Israel claimed the U.S. was holding up military aid. Top Israeli officials, they're now on their way to Washington to meet with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan tomorrow. ABC's Selena Wang, she has what the White House is saying about the first meeting being canceled.
They're pushing back on allegations that it was canceled specifically because of frustration over that video from Netanyahu. They say that there were scheduling issues. The National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, he had been traveling through the region. He needed to move it for scheduling purposes. This just really underscores all of the strain and frustration between the Biden and Netanyahu teams. And I'm learning also from a U.S. official that the U.S. did tell their Israeli counterparts that Netanyahu's video was out of line and inaccurate.
Let's turn now to today's money news. With that, here's Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. The U.S. financial markets are closed for the Juneteenth holiday, but markets around the world were open for business as usual. They closed mixed after Wall Street markets continue to tick to more records lately on the most recent signs that the economy may be slowing, but not necessarily heading for a recession. NVIDIA's journey skyward in the stock market has reached another milestone. The chip maker is now the most valuable company in the S&P 500, with investors pricing it at over $3.3 trillion. Demand for NVIDIA semiconductors, which are used to power artificial intelligence applications, have been soaring. The company's revenue more than tripled in the latest quarter from the same period a year earlier. It's been over a year since the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act was signed into law, but the legal organization, A Better Balance, has many women say they're still dealing with employers who don't know about it, misunderstand it, or simply refuse to comply.
And quickly, in the College World Series, in that semifinal game, the Tennessee Volunteers facing off against Florida State. They're in the top of the sixth. The Vols on top by a 5-0 score. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather, they're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Great conversation regarding Louisiana and their decision earlier today. The governor of that state, who was just in Tennessee a few days ago at the Republican Statesman's Dinner, which is difficult for me to say for some reason, down at Music City Center. I don't know if Congressman Scott DesJarlais was down there. I guess I should know, but we'll ask the man himself. Congressman DesJarlais joins us on The Drive with no Brian Wilson, Matt Murphy in for Brian. Scott, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt, doing great. And yes, indeed, I was there listening to Governor Landry.
You know, the governor kind of gave a tip to all of those in attendance as to how he was going on this 10 Commandments bill. Are you in favor of this thing? Do you think it's is it much ado about nothing? Is it an overreach, or is there some importance in this legislation in your estimation?
Well, we had a tough time just keeping the Pledge of Allegiance and under God in the school. So I think that we ought to not overreach there. That's an area where there's a lot of religions in this country, and I think maybe that's a topic left for Sunday mornings, not morning classes.
Well, I think if we have the 10 Commandments in our hearts and we walk with them in our hearts into the school system, that's going to go a lot further than having them on the wall. But that's just me. A lot of people are very passionate about the issue, and I certainly and fully understand that. Let's talk, Scott, about cheap fakes. So this is new. I guess this is some sort of made-up term by the White House to justify the president of the United States and his He seemingly has an inability to get off a stage without wandering around. I've heard him described as a Roomba when he tries to leave a stage, where he just kind of wanders about, doesn't really know which way to go. And now the administration and the campaign are clapping back that these are cheap fakes. When did you first hear of this term?
I just heard a few days ago, and it's amazing the length that they'll go to cover up these blunders. The poor president or leader of Italy had to go fetch him back at the ceremony at the G7, and I saw Joe Biden up speaking to what he should be speaking to, and I'm surprised they're not blaming it on AI, that somebody is just creating these images of him wandering around like, I hadn't heard Roomba yet, but that's a great description. And, it'll be interesting to see when he steps on the debate stage, whether he can keep it together for 90 minutes. I would be surprised that he hasn't been fed the questions like Hillary Clinton was. But, that was 4 years ago when he debated Trump and kind of held his own, and Trump was maybe overly aggressive and trying to shake him and rattle him. But I think if Trump just stays in his lane, Biden will do what we all expect him to do, and at some point melt down, freeze up, or whatever. So, the State of the Union, he stumbled through that with kind of a thick tongue. We'll see how he does in the debate. But I think that the cheap fake will be hard to back during this debate. We'll see.
No, he was roidy. He was like steroidy during the State of the Union, man. He was all fired up and angry about something or another. I expect that we'll see similar a week from tomorrow on the debate stage. I have a theory. And I know this is deep politics, but I'm curious your thoughts about it, Scott. I call it the Biden replacement theory, that I believe the Democrats agreed to a debate this early because they feel like they need to see Joe Biden on stage for 90 minutes, unaided, with a teleprompter, unaided by other assistants. Because if he can't do it next week, they'll replace him. And they'll figure out a way to do it between then and the convention and ultimately November. And they need some confirmation one way or the other. If he manages to get through it with relatively unscathed, maybe they go with him. But I believe this is all designed to test whether or not he can manage it.
I think that's a great analogy. I was just talking to my wife last night. We saw Biden leading him off or Obama leading him off the stage the other day. Can they get him through the election and he wins and he resigns in the first month or right after the election, and whoever the VP, they could be replacing Kamala Harris with somebody between now and the convention, knowing that there's no way in heck Biden could finish it. So what if they put a strong contender in the VP slot, knowing that Biden's going to step down? Or I for a long time, over a year now, said he would not make it to the starting line. So it wouldn't shock me if you're right on that. But I never thought he would actually be their nominee come November.
You know, there's a political side of this, and it comes with a lot of memes and a lot of jokes and cheap fakes and these types of things. But there's a more serious side of this, and you deal with it on the regular in Washington, around the country, in the state of Tennessee, and around the globe. And I'm afraid, but considering that I don't believe the person making the decisions in the White House is the guy that was, quote unquote, elected to be in the White House in the form of Joe Biden. I think it's someone else. And this lack of leadership leads to a lot of conflicts, a lot of danger around the globe. What do you believe outside of the United States borders is our most pressing issue? And I'm going to take the immigration issue on the southern border off the table for a moment. From a foreign policy perspective, what are you fearful of most? Is it Russia, Ukraine? Is it Israel, Hamas? Or is it China? What is it, Scott?
I'm afraid of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea banding together, seeing this weakness, and knowing that Biden is afraid to make any kind of real move. You know, they've gotten all this funding for Ukraine, but they won't let them win. It's like they can't play offense. They can only play defense. Putin knows that. Putin rattles the nuclear threat saber. I don't think Putin is stupid enough to destroy the world over Ukraine, but Biden is definitely afraid of him, and I think he projects weakness to President Xi, weakness in Iran. He's wishy-washy on Israel and Hamas. You know, had $9 billion in aid going to support Israel's enemy, most of which predictably has been stolen or has not made it where it belongs. And I think on the world stage right now, if Biden were reelected, Xi will be hitting Taiwan, and I think those four countries I mentioned will ally together, and it's really a precarious, dangerous situation. So that keeps me awake at night. We need to project strength, and that's something President Trump would do. But I think we're a laughing stock, the way he performed at the G7. I mean, it's not lost on everyone else. They don't have a White House and Jean-Claude Pierre to talk about cheap fakes and things that we've all been seeing now for a long time. I just was through South America a couple of weeks ago, and I tell you, in Colombia, Panama, Argentina, Chile, they see our weakness. It's evident the military, wants to be on our side, but they see the threat with the Venezuelans and the Chinese that are coming through the Darien Pass and through Panama, and they know it's a threat. And this administration acts like and you said we weren't going to talk about the border, but it's hard not to. They're coming into this country every day. We're seeing terrorists, we're seeing ISIS, we're seeing Chinese nationalists, and now Biden's given amnesty to people, and it's a huge threat. So I think just our standing on the world stage, I think people are reluctant to join our military right now. I think recruitment's down because they don't know what they're fighting for. There's no clear message. There's no transparency.
The most important thing I got out of that answer, and there was a lot of important things in that answer, but the most important thing I got, Scott, was a new nickname for the White House press secretary. You said Jean-Claude Pierre. I'm going to call Karine Jean-Pierre Claude from now on. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
It doesn't matter.
Sure how she's lasted as long as she has, but anyway.
Because you cannot fire an African American lesbian. Not in this day. Not if you're Joe Biden. That's how she's lasted. They want to replace her with John Kirby. They can't do it because they can't replace her with a white guy. That's just Matt Murphy's take on it, not Scott DesJarlais.
Yeah, that'd be DEI turned upside down.
I was getting to the southern border, and you kind of touched on it right at the end of the answer. Obviously, this is the most, I don't know of a greater existential threat to the future of our country than this, that we allow millions of individuals, and even if 99% of them are good people that are just looking for work, which is what we're told by the left all the time, Scott, that 1%, and I think it's a lot more than 1%, coming in to do damage to this country in the form of rape, in the form of murder, and possibly even worse, in the form of terrorism.
I don't think there's any doubt that that's happening. Biden's own administration is warning of that. In every armed services meeting where we have a general, or I don't know if I'd say Secretary of the Army or Joint Chiefs of Staff because they're so in Biden's back pocket, but they say that the southern border is a huge threat to national security. If you don't have border security, you don't have national security. For some reason, they're ignoring that. It's not a matter if there's going to be a terrorist attack, it's when. And as you said, we're already just racking up the numbers on murders, rapes, I mean, every day there's a new story. And again, in Central America, they got it. They were saying, I cannot believe you guys are letting this happen. You know, they're letting them pass through Panama and Colombia because they don't want them there. And they're just, heading towards America. But it is an enormous threat. And, how many 10 million have come in under his administration? When I took office, they said there was 10 million living here illegally. I'm guessing there's upward to 30 million people living in this country illegally, and that's 10% of our population. You start granting amnesty, and people are not coming here anymore to look for work. Some of them are, but a lot of them are coming here for welfare, and they know that they come in and they're given all these freebies, and yet Americans who are working, like today, it's Juneteenth, totally different topic. I was one of 14 to vote against Juneteenth. I was told I would be a racist if I voted against it. And it's like, no, do you realize it costs the taxpayer? You're working today and getting paid and paying taxes. It costs the taxpayer $1 billion today for all the government employees to not work. And I was not going to vote for another federal holiday when we already have too many. So, the immigrants are breaking our country. These excessive holidays that I don't even understand this one. I don't even care who it was for. I just know we didn't need another one. And honestly, I really didn't take any flack for voting against it. And so we got to quit giving away money we don't have. But illegal immigration is costing us an enormous amount. I've heard from the Institute of Immigration Studies up to $80,000 per year per immigrant coming into this country. Do the math with 10 million in the last 3 to 4 years.
Short on time, Scott, but 2 rapid-fire questions. One on the issue of bump stocks. The Supreme Court, I think, rightly rules on the statutory language of what a machine gun is. Do you think Congress should take any action with regard to bump stocks, or are you comfortable where we are right now?
Yeah, I think that even if Congress tried to take any action, I don't think they could get anything done. But I think I didn't even, to be honest with you, I didn't even hear the ruling. I know that was coming out. So
they just ruled that the ATF cannot unilaterally decide that bump stocks are illegal. It would take an act of Congress to make bump stocks illegal.
Yeah, Second Amendment issues, I think it should take an act of Congress.
And then finally, this issue with the housing adjustment, are you aware of this for congressional members? And where are you on this? Where now members of Congress get paid $174,000 or thereabouts a year. I know when you have 2 houses, that's not a lot of money. But in the minute that we have left, are you comfortable with this housing allotment that's being funneled into congressional memberships' wallets?
Well, I'm very confused by it because it's very ambiguous. It's not a per diem like state legislators get, that have to travel to Nashville, this and that.
Right.
So basically, they need to clarify, are they going to do a per diem? There's not been a raise in Congress in 15 years. So the 174 we're making today, which most people would love to be making, is the same that I was making when I took office 14 years ago. No cost of living increases. And yes, D.C. is very expensive. I think they need to clarify what it actually is, what it means, and be transparent about it. And then let's have an honest discussion. Right now, it seems to be some mystery per diem that you can get for lodging or food, and I don't even understand it.
Scott, great stuff as always. Time is out. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
There's Scott DesJarlais joining us for a few good moments on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Good afternoon. It's 5:01. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got clouds and 86 degrees on Music Row. A full forecast and another traffic report are on the way. There are growing concerns that clashes on Israel's northern border with Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants could lead to a broader conflict in the Middle East. ABC's Selena Wang explains.
What this speaks to is how the whole region is on edge. Not only do you have the Gaza war still raging, but now there's this other front with Lebanon, fears of this opening another front. And Hamas is very different from Hezbollah. Hezbollah is better armed, better equipped, better funded. So deep concerns here about any miscalculation turning into something more serious.
Back in the U.S., a federal judge in Maryland is ordering the owners of the Dolly container ship to not help its crew members leave the country. This is ahead of an emergency hearing tomorrow that's related to an ongoing civil case over who should pay for the costs and damages from the crash and collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Perry Russamam has more in D.C.
Attorneys for the city of Baltimore say the crew of the Dolly should stay in the U.S. so they can be deposed in an ongoing civil litigation. The Dolly's crew consists of men from Sri Lanka and India. In court documents, attorneys for the city write they're worried if the men leave the country, they'll never be questioned or deposed. The judge's ruling does not stop the men from leaving the U.S. It orders the owners of the Dolly to not facilitate their departure.
On the East Coast, a beachgoer in North Carolina has been hospitalized for what folks think is a shark bite. Sunset Beach, I'll spit it out. Sunset Beach Police Chief Ken Claymore says that a call came in to 911 about a bite to a 20-year-old male.
The injury was to the lower leg. We believe it was caused by some sort of sea life. The caller identified that it was a shark bite, but we have no way to determine that.
The chief of that area did warn all beachgoers to be especially vigilant. The death of a true baseball legend yesterday, Willie Mays, once said that he had a love affair with the game. The Say Hey Kid was celebrated in music and movies. You remember that song, Mickey, Willie, and the Duke? Yeah, well, he was pretty much on the diamond where he made his home for 24 years. He passed away yesterday of heart failure at age 93.
In 1952, he was drafted into the Korean War, serving 2 years. And when he returned, he would thrill fans with an MVP season capped with the catch, Mays making one of the most memorable plays of all time. The Giants would win the World Series.
Every time I went on the field, I enjoyed what I was doing. I gave everything I had.
They eventually moved to San Francisco, but years later, Mays returned to New York, finishing his career with the Mets.
And quickly, in the bottom of the seventh inning in the College World Series, the Tennessee Volunteers still up over Florida State by a 6-2 score. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It is The Drive. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm filling in for Brian Wilson today. Normally, you hear me from noon until 3. At least I hope you do on a day-to-day basis, Monday through Friday. I shift over to the afternoon drive slot when Brian is unavailable or not present and accounted for. I am. Chris Webber is. Jay Harper is, and you are. And we thank you for that. It is 5:08. A good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. Hot, not as hot. Summertime rolling around. Is it tomorrow?
Yes.
I think tomorrow the first
tomorrow
day?
afternoon, I think, is when it like 3:50 or something like that.
Bring it on. I love all the seasons. I like the seasons like I like food. I'm non-discriminatory. I take it as it comes to me.
I don't mind summer for about, week, 2 weeks. Then I'm over it.
Then you're done?
Yeah.
Don't you feel? Do you feel that way about every season though?
No. Just summer.
What's your favorite?
Fall. No doubt. Autumn is the best. Low humidity, cool, crisp evenings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really like it. And it's football season, too.
Yeah, football helps a lot.
Yeah.
I tell you. If there were some better sports in the spring, I might go spring over fall. But, I dig it all. I mean, I can see all of it. But anyway, it's hot. Summertime tomorrow. Officially summer tomorrow, and it should get hotter as the weekend moves a little bit closer. Jay Harper's in the newsroom. He's gathering headlines as we speak. And as I mentioned, my name is Matt Murphy, and for Brian Wilson, you're welcome to be a part of the show, 615-737-9986. 2 hours down and 2 to go on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've only got, is this right? It's 86 degrees. Is that right? What do you got in there?
Yeah.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Well, that's better than 91. That's a heck of a lot better than 98 or whatever.
Clouds doing their job.
Well, there you go. There, a little cloud cover helps with regard to the sun. Okay, so we have an anticipation of Congressman John Rose in this hour at about 5:30 in studio, and that just was some happenstance that came about. John was delivering some remarks earlier today. I don't know why he's in Nashville, but we'll find out together when he steps up to the microphone about 5:35. I'll ask him a few of the same questions that we asked Scott DesJarlais last hour in the show. If you happen to catch it, asking DesJarlais about Joe Biden's infirmity, what that means, whether or not he will continue as the candidate. I have a big replacement theory. And look, this is not new. Speculation, I know that Brian has done it. Brian and I did it around the same time. I don't know who came first, and I'm not trying to be first, and I'm not trying to usurp Brian saying what he said. I don't know when he said it and when I said it, but both of us came to the conclusion about a year. Was it about a year ago? I mean, it's been about a year.
Right, yeah.
About a year ago. That I did not see how Joe Biden could manage to get to the finish line effectively enough to secure a victory for the Democrats in this presidential nomination process. And as that is laid out before us, we see Democrat operatives doing their best to try to cover up the frailty and the mental infirmity of our current president as he attempts desperately to maintain a schedule on the campaign. Well, not today. The president of the United States, with everything going on, with the southern border calamity, and he made it worse with this 500,000 or thereabouts, 500,000 undocumented individuals who are married to U.S. citizens are now going to be amnestized or legalized. I don't believe that he has the authority to unilaterally do this, and I think it will be challenged in court. That takes a congressional authority. More on that to come in the weeks and months to come. This, along with his executive action regarding capping the numbers that are allowed to come to the border. By the way, according to our Border Patrol agents on the scene, according to reporters on the scene, none of it has done anything. He signed that executive order, and there's still thousands flooding the zone, and these thousands are continuing to be allowed in the United States of America. They are simply opening the doors and allowing anyone and everyone that says the words asylum to come into our country. They may be handed a piece of paper, maybe not, maybe adjudicated, maybe not, and off they go. And oftentimes they are handed bus tickets. They're handed, in some cases, plane tickets. This is the reality of what's going on the southern border. And the Democrats can't chat their way out of it. And Joe Biden certainly can't executive order his way out of it. With all of that going on, with his refusal to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu on the Israeli-Hamas front, with no end in sight to our proxy war against Russia in Ukraine, Biden just puts up, he's essentially putting a lid on the month. It is June 19th, and the President of the United States, not a lid on the day, a lid. And for those who haven't been following this, we are amused, right, as we follow it as closely as we do. Putting a lid means that the press corps, the White House press corps, is alerted to the fact that the President of the United States will have no further public events on any given day. And the press corps calls that putting a lid on it, meaning we don't have anything else to cover. We can go off to the bars or the restaurants or wherever those reporters go in Washington, D.C. to do their thing because the president will not be seen for the rest of the day. And a lot of times Joe Biden puts a lid on it at like 11 o'clock in the morning or 12:30 or whatever it might be. Well, now the Biden administration, upping themselves, topping even themselves, they've put a lid on the month. He's going to the beach for the rest of the week and into the weekend, and he's going to debate prep until the debate, which happens next Thursday. What are you doing that you have to prep for a week and a day for a 90-minute stand-up conversation with the American people and your opponent, especially considering that you have two allies in the form of Dana Bash and Jake Tapper there with you in studio and nobody else because they won't allow an audience in there. No one is really sure except to say that he's probably there. You know what? To get him the way that he was, I'm not trying to cast aspersions, and I'm not a medical doctor. I don't pretend to be. But, I don't believe you have to be a medical doctor to understand what's going on with Joe Biden. If you've had an elderly parent or grandparent that you've seen go downhill, my grandfather, and I talk about him a lot on my show, and for those of you who have heard me, you've heard me mention him, and my grandfather was the finest human being to ever walk the face of the earth, followed closely by Dolly Parton. And thank the Lord we still have her. But I watched my grandfather before he passed away at the age of 86. The last year of his life, it was a difficult thing to watch because he didn't only lose some of his physical stamina that had always seemed to be there, even into his 80s, but he lost the mental ability to remember things. He would tell stories over and over again. We've experienced it. We see it, and now we see it in our President of the United States. It just leaves us uncomfortable. I mean, above and beyond the creature that Joe Biden became in Washington, D.C. over the 50-plus years that he's been there, I just feel bad for him. That he has to be led by the arm by Obama, and he just allows himself. It's not that it happened. It's that Joe Biden allowed it to happen in front of that audience. That he did not have the mental fortitude to understand how that looked. That's the point. And the mainstream media intentionally misses the point when they talk about these cheap fakes. They don't want to talk about the reality. That the mentality that would allow him to be taken by the wrist, turned around, and led off stage, that's not the mind that you want in the Oval Office making some of these life or death decisions with regard to foreign and domestic policy. So it is nothing new that we speculate as to whether or not Joe Biden is going to make it to November. The question is not even a matter, in my mind, of if, but when and how. And which leads me to something that I previewed in the last hour that I want to follow up on, and that is called my Biden replacement theory. Because many have speculated, including liberal outlets, this is not just a matter of Republicans or talk host commentary or Fox News or Newsmax or whatever it might be. It's the Washington Post presented a position by which they said that Joe has got to go, saying that Biden should not only replace Kamala Harris with Hillary Clinton, that maybe Hillary Clinton should replace Joe Biden. The New York Times, one of their lead opinion writers, indicated that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how we get Joe Biden out of that seat. Republicans, Democrats, Senator Tommy Tuberville from the state of Alabama my former adopted home state, said, there's no way this guy makes it to the finish line. Now, I don't know. I don't know if the drug cocktails will be enough to prop him up, but I do believe this, that they're putting a lot of eggs, if not all of their eggs, into this one basket that is this debate on June 27th. And I believe that this is a test run case, that they understand that the next several months are crucial, important. They have to lie, cheat their way into a stolen victory in November of 2024. They can't run on Joe Biden's record. They can't certainly run on his stamina, his energy levels, his mental acuity. But they have to have him somewhat there in order to present him to the American people. I think there's a reason they agreed to this early debate. It's never been done before in the history of the United States of America that I know of, that the two candidates have been for so long decided in their individual respective parties, and they make a decision even before their nominating conventions, even before they are the official candidates of their respective parties. They've now been given an opportunity to stand on stage as the presumed candidates, which they're doing. Certainly in modern history, it's never happened this way. Not this early. The reason that it's happening this early, well, Donald Trump said anytime, anywhere, any place, anyhow, I'll do it. And a lot of folks are concerned that Trump and his team allowed a no audience policy. They allowed two anti-Trump commentators to be the moderators of this debate. That's problematic. That they allowed mics to go off. I actually think the mic being turned off is a positive for Trump. I know that he can't help himself. And so if they have he needs to be able to get out of the way and let the American people see the infirmity of Joe Biden. They pumped him up. A lot of folks are saying, well, State of the Union proves that they can pump him full of steroids or whatever it is, whatever kind of Adderall-based cocktail that they utilize, that they can pump him up and get him jazzed up for the 90 minutes or whatnot that he'll be on the stage. A couple of important distinctions. One, don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh when I say this. Don't make me laugh. One, he doesn't know what questions are coming. Don't make me laugh. Don't do it. Now, I don't know how they figure out whether or not CNN cheats on this, but presumably Joe Biden will not know what questions are going to be asked. Presumably. Whether or not that's true, remains to be seen. But that's not nearly as important as point number two. In the State of the Union address Joe Biden was reading, and he didn't do it very well, but he was better than most scenarios or circumstances we've seen him in over the last year or so. He was pumped up. He was kind of angry Joe. Steroids will do that to you. And for, the better part of an hour, he yelled into a microphone the things that he read off a teleprompter. Well, you don't get a teleprompter in a debate. It's a 90-minute deal. There are two breaks. Can Donald Trump manage to bait Joe Biden into a position where he truly shows his mental frailty? Remains to be seen. But if that happens, if Joe Biden flounders and if we see him exposed on stage, I think the Democrats are fully willing to pull the rug out from under Joe Biden. He is a useful idiot to them. And whomever it is making the decision, and most of us believe that it is a collection of old Obama folks, the Valerie Jarretts of the world, the Rices of the world, and Obama himself to a certain degree, and maybe even to more of a degree than I'd give credit. Those making these types of decisions, they'll pull the rug out from under him, and they'll move on to someone else. Somehow, I don't know how that happens, but that's my theory. It starts with the debate. Good performance, Democrat sticks with him. Bad performance, bad enough where the media's talking about, they can't cover it up with, quote, cheap fakes. He's got to go, which begs the question, who steps in? It better not be I wouldn't mind Kamala. It'd be good for the country. You talk about somebody that has no age excuse. She's just dumb. Gavin Newsom? We'll see. The next 7 days are going to be fun. the summer is going to be a fun time as well. When we return, Texas Children's Hospital and the expose presented online about what they are doing against Texas law. And I have a question for you. Who's checking Vanderbilt? You'll find out what that means in a moment on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
The U.S. military claiming a key ISIS figure has been killed. And distracted and aggressive drivers in Williamson County, well, they're a bit poorer today. We'll have those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm also going to tell you at some point before 7 o'clock the real news when it comes to a vegan restaurant. I don't want to give away the punchline to the story. There was a vegan restaurant in California that, and I'm picking on Jay Harper when I say the real news. He knows that. He's coming up in just a couple of minutes. But there was a vegan restaurant out in California, okay, which you might expect. Well, this restaurant decided to change the direction of their menu, and they opened up their menu to meat-based products. But they only had very specific types of meat-based products, like locally sourced, locally grown, naturally raised, these types of things, like did everything right. Would it surprise you for me to tell you that the outcome was not good based on the public's response to their decision to serve meat? It was, you're going to love this story. That's coming up at some point in the 6 o'clock hour on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And I know I've been teasing this story about the Texas Children's Hospital quite a bit, and I will not be able to get into the meat and potatoes of that story, no pun intended, before the 6 o'clock hour because we have John Rose on the way. But and, you know, maybe Congressman Rose wants to answer to this too, but there was a report by a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute online, a man by the name of Christopher Rufo, who exposed the Texas Children's Hospital through a whistleblower inasmuch as they are in current violation, at least this is the accusation, of current Texas law, so much so that the Office of the Attorney General of the state of Texas is launching an investigation into the issue. According to Rufo, he received information from a whistleblower, two, as a matter of fact, named whistleblowers, that doctors at Texas Children's Hospital were willfully falsifying medical records and breaking the law in order to continue to practice, quote, gender-affirming care. In other words, it is against the law in the state of Texas, as it is in the state of Tennessee, to perform gender-altering surgeries on minors or to offer minors gender or puberty-blocking type of medications. And according to Vanderbilt, here in the state of Tennessee, they're not doing this anymore. Well, according to Texas Children's Hospital, they weren't doing it anymore either. And they hid behind HIPAA laws to prevent being exposed. I want to know who's doing the checking at Vanderbilt. I want to know who's looking behind these medical procedures, these practicers of these procedures, and making sure that they've not continued their practice in violation of Tennessee law. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I just want to know what the checks and balances are, because apparently the checks and balances weren't working at Texas Children's Hospital, and I want to make sure the children of the state of Tennessee are protected. We're going to get into that more coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It's 5:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We have cloudy conditions, 85 degrees on Music Row. Another traffic report and a steamy hot weather forecast is coming up in a few minutes. The U.S. military saying a key ISIS figure was targeted in a recent U.S. airstrike in Syria. ABC's Luis Martinez, he has the story.
Sunday's airstrike in Syria killed a senior ISIS official, whom U.S. Central Command said was involved in planning terror attacks. CENTCOM described Usama Jamal Muhammad Ibrahim al-Janabi as a senior ISIS official and a facilitator. CENTCOM said his death would disrupt ISIS's ability to resource and conduct terror attacks. CENTCOM said there was no indication that any civilians were harmed by the strike.
The Williamson County Sheriff's Office back here in Middle Tennessee has released data from a coordinated effort to crack down on distracted and aggressive drivers. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with the Tennessee Highway Patrol and Franklin Police Department, searched for distracted, speeding, and aggressive drivers along I-65 in those areas. Out of 118 traffic stops, 79 drivers were cited for hands-free violations. 4 were given warnings. 1 drug arrest was made, and 6 people were arrested for driving without a license or a suspended license. And finally, in Omaha, it's looking good for the Tennessee Volunteer Baseball team at the College World Series. Top of the 9th inning, Tennessee, they just hit a home run. They're up over Florida State 7-2. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is The Drive. We want to thank you, one and all, for joining us today in the absence of Brian Wilson. Brian will be back tomorrow. My name is Matt Murphy, normally heard from noon until 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you so much. We'll get more into the Texas Children's Hospital story that just is, if the whistleblowers are to be believed, and I certainly do believe them, it is an unbelievable example of overreach on the part of medical professionals and in their desire to perform some of these types of procedures that we as a society are frowning upon greatly, and especially in the state of Tennessee, Texas, and other areas of the South. We'll get more into that coming up in just a couple of minutes. But right now at 5:40 in the afternoon, we welcome into our studios, it just such happenstance here. I contacted Dylan over in D.C. about having Congressman John Rose on the show. Always a pleasure to talk with Congressman Rose about the issues of the day. And it just so happens that he was in Nashville today, and he said, why don't I just stop by? And here he is, Congressman John Rose, joining us in studio today on The Drive. Thank you, John.
Good afternoon, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you on the phone, and now I get an opportunity to do so in person. And we were just talking about some of the politics of the day and the goings-on in Washington, D.C., and I would expect that there's a lot of chatter nowadays about cheap fakes, as they are now called, a new term that some in media circles are claiming is an old term, but I don't remember hearing it outside of the last week or so. Have you been talking in D.C. about cheap fakes, John?
We haven't, and we're on district work period this week, so of course I learn about this in the media the same way you do, and it is an interesting ploy, one that the Biden administration has been, I guess you would have to say, successful at foisting upon all of us some of these new terms. Mm-hmm. In the financial services space, the one that Rohit Chopra, who runs the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has coined the phrase of, and now I'm going to have a senior moment and not say it, of regulations
you'll get it back.
Junk regulations. There we go.
Okay, there you go.
Well, junk fees is what he calls, and I call what he's doing junk regulations.
Okay, there you go.
Got myself off track there. So he came up with this term that doesn't mean anything, but anything he doesn't like, he calls it a junk fee.
Right.
Financial institutions would charge like an overdraft fee, and he calls that a junk fee. And I call what he's doing junk regulations. And so here they go again, creating a term that they're using to try to divert attention.
Well, no, I know junk fees well because I put it on my long laundry list of things that the Biden folks are doing to try to convince this collection of identity groups to support him in the upcoming election. I think, you put junk fees on top of like student loan deferment, or just, amnesty on repayment of agreed to student loans among that number. That's a big deal. Against the will of the Congress and against the instruction of the United States Supreme Court, the Biden administration still tries to find a way around it and try to find a way to do it. They're doing this with a lot of identity groups nowadays.
Absolutely. And again, the Biden administration has done this across it's kind of their whole of government approach to implementing their ideological agenda. And of course, here they're doing it to defend the president and try to divert attention from the fact that he's mentally, frankly, not fit to be president.
You kind of lead me into that, and I was going to ask it a different way. I was going to step back and try to be as neutral of an arbiter on this as I can. But, is there any question? You look at some of even the videos from 2018, 2019, in the lead up to the presidential election of 2020, it's getting to the point of being fearful about where this leads us. I asked your colleague Scott DesJarlais last hour, I'll ask you this hour, of all of the dangers that we face, what concerns you the most when we consider that it does not seem that our commander-in-chief is making the decisions from the Oval Office, that someone else in his orbit's making those decisions? If that be the case, what scares you the most?
Well, I think China trying to retake Taiwan, trying to invade Taiwan would be the ultimate challenge that, the proverbial 2 a.m. call that was the subject of a previous presidential election discussion. This president, is is just clearly, I think, not up to the task to make the snap decision. So that means someone other than the president's going to be making those decisions. And the American people deserve to know that. We deserve to know if it's not the guy we're electing, if he's not really the person who is in possession of the facts and information and able to discern and make a judgment, who is it? And it's not really fair to the American people for that to be somebody that we're not allowed to vote for.
You and I were talking off air a minute ago about this debate that's coming up. If not unprecedented, certainly unprecedented to my mind that we would have one this early. I think that's on purpose. Is there any conversation, speculation, or do you have any thoughts on the early nature of this debate and why the Democrats might be suggesting that this happen this soon? Or, one of two things to me, John, and I don't want to, get in front of your answer, but either they're trying to figure out if their guy has the stamina to make it in November, or they want to get done with this and get it out of the way so that the American people will forget about whatever happens during this debate.
I think those two theories, one of them must be the answer, or perhaps they're playing chess and we're playing checkers and we just don't see it. But I think having some time for them to remediate whatever damage the president might do to himself, that is certainly a plausible theory. But I think if they see him stumble to the degree that they know he can't hang with Trump, which is certainly what a lot of us would expect might happen, but they're also, they've diminished expectations. Obviously, if he just stays awake for the hour and a half, 2 hours, they're going to chalk that as a win.
You right before we came back on air, you noted that, and I want to share it with the entirety of the audience because I think it's an important point. The media expectation, and maybe we're guilty of it too, that we don't expect him to perform. I don't want to set the bar so low that if he just manages to stay upright for 90 minutes, that they consider that a win amongst the Democrats. And you expressed that concern too.
I think so, and I think they've pushed expectations to that point, just as they did with the State of the Union address you were talking about earlier. And then obviously he comes in, he's hyped up on something, and he manages to show a lot of energy for the space of that time. Obviously, we hope that there's a difference here in that he is not supposed to be prepared for the questions that are coming. He's not supposed to be prompted to have answers. But you'd almost like to know that maybe somebody has some signal jamming technology in case there's an earbud or something. Or
watch for those ear roaches, right?
Exactly. Right. So hopefully we get to see the ability of this president to respond to the unexpected. I mean, my own sense is that even if he had been fed the questions ahead of time, that he's not smooth enough at this point not to reveal that to us at his answers, and particularly if he gets any kind of twist or turn, that we'll see at telltale signs that maybe he's been tipped off.
I don't remember, and you've been involved in the political world for a long time. I have too. I don't remember a time in our history where there has been so much chatter. And this is obviously the result of the southern border and the open nature of the southern border. There's so much chatter about the possibility of terrorism, of terrorist attacks, of unknown actors exploiting our southern border for their own purposes. I don't remember a time in my adult life that we've talked about it this much with so much trepidation. Do you? And what are you concerned about? I mean, obviously, the totality of the southern border is a little bit overwhelming in terms of what the possibilities might be, negative possibilities.
Well, just I think anyone observing what's happening at the southern border, you would know that our enemies, and we do have enemies, and whether those are nation-state actors or whether they are terrorist groups, why would they not seize the opportunity to get operatives into the country?
Wouldn't we?
The current? Absolutely, we would.
Wouldn't we? Right?
So I think we can just rest assured that they have sent folks here, that there are folks that have coming into our southern border, coming into the country, crossing that border, that are here for ill purposes. And the question is just how aggressive would our enemies be in using those folks to advance whatever their objectives are. And then on top of that, of course, we have the FBI director, who I otherwise am not real confident in, but he is sounding the alarm. And I think that is at least telling us that he doesn't want to be given the blame for being napping about that, for napping in the middle of this crisis or this risk building. And so then we know, that we've had, now close to 30,000 Chinese nationals just in this fiscal year that have come across the southern border of military age. And
some of them, by the way, just showing up outside of military installations in the middle of nowhere. And when questioned, I'm just sightseeing.
And we know the Chinese are testing us, the balloon incident being a classic example, but we can see it all around the world that they're testing us. And it would be malpractice on their part, frankly, if they weren't taking advantage of this opportunity.
I mean, as an enemy operatives, I mean, you get it. Everyone seems to get it except for the White House. Is it too much to say, and I want to throw a couple of items out here real quick before we have to take a break on the table. Is it too much to call the disagreement between the executive branch of government and the legislative branch of government regarding this audio between Biden and Robert Hur? I mean, is it a constitutional crisis? Maybe not a crisis, but certainly a constitutional question, because the executive branch is withholding this evidence. And you in Congress have said, we want to see this. We can't make certain decisions, as is our right as an equal branch of government, if we don't see this, and they're not giving it to you.
I think so. I think clearly Congress is entitled to get this information, and I think it's one of those questions that the founders probably didn't fully anticipate, how this would unfold, and then what is the way to proceed. I mean, we've obviously censured the Attorney General, and the question is, can we hold him to account without the help of the Justice Department? Clearly, they're not going to help us unless they're in some way forced to. And so I think it really points out potentially a flaw in the structure of our government. I suppose the House or members of the House can sue and try to get this to the third branch of government to render a decision about whether we're entitled to this, but we know that takes time. And obviously in an election year when we have 2 or 3, 4 months to work with here, and it's relevant to the American people. And we've seen the Democrats and the Biden administration play their hand really well here in terms of stalling and delaying and dragging these things out. And probably the best example of that is the Biden laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, which effectively could have had a real impact on the 2020 election, and yet the deep state was successful in scuttling that impact. And
not one apology from those 51 so-called intelligence officers, not one.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting.
All of whom should be held to account.
Absolutely. All right, final thought on another issue, and that is the issue of bump stocks. The Supreme Court, I think, rightly decided that the statutory language presented by Congress is clear as to what is a machine gun. They do not believe that the addition of this bump stock makes it a machine gun. Do you anticipate any action on the part of Congress
to try to reinstate
it?
I don't. Well, there'll be members
some
try
Democrats,
to, but I don't think Congress steps in, and nor do I think we should.
John, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate your representation for the people that you represent in the state of Tennessee. I think you do a great job, and you're always responsive with a telephone call or a text when we ask you to come on and speak to the people of Middle Tennessee, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me on the drive this afternoon. It's a great honor and privilege to represent the good people of the 6th District of Tennessee.
There's John Rose. We'll be back in a moment, 5:53 on Super Talk.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Good evening. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got clouds and 86 degrees on Music Row. The latest traffic report and a weather forecast are upcoming. Clashes across Israel's northern border with Lebanon continue, with Israeli defense forces exchanging fire with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The fighting is stoking fear that Israel could become locked in a second potential war with an Iran-backed militia group. Marcus Moore is in Beirut.
A provocative speech by Hassan Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah, threatened Cyprus if they allow Israel to use their airports for any type of operation or assistance in the event of a military offensive here. He also said in his speech that they have new weapons to fight with and that they also have more intelligence on Israel than what they have laid out.
Back here in the U.S., a new requirement about the 10 Commandments in Louisiana classrooms. Here's ABC's Derek Dennis.
Under a new law signed by Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, the 10 Commandments must be displayed in public school classrooms statewide. The first-in-the-nation law was drafted by Republican legislators and mandates that a poster-sized 10 Commandments display in, quote, large, easily readable font will be required in all public classrooms from kindergarten to the university level. Opponents question the law's constitutionality, warning that lawsuits are likely to follow, but supporters say the purpose of the measure is not only religious, but that it has historical significance.
We now move over to the southwestern United States, where thousands in southern New Mexico don't know if their homes are still there. 2 wildfires growing in extreme heat. Alex Stone reports.
Flames have been bearing down on several towns in southern New Mexico, including Ruidoso. Thousands of people who live in Ruidoso are now living at a Red Cross shelter in Roswell. Paula Damian and family got out.
So we began preparing, packed the cars, we're ready to go. Then we decided it was close enough and we could smell it and see it.
At least one person has been killed and a state of emergency has been declared.
Back here in Nashville, Metro Council made a sweeping pass of the 2025 budget last night. The approved budget will fund a new Metro office, increase Nashville employees' salaries, and invest in various programs at Metro schools. Metro leaders said it was a tough year for the budget as federal pandemic-era funds ran dry, threatening the end of several school programs. However, leaders said a chunk of the budget will still allow Metro schools to continue running programs that were funded by those federal dollars. Also included in the budget is $1 million that will help fight a rise in youth violence. This comes after the city faces a staggering 80% increase in teens being shot compared to this time last year. And finally, the Tennessee Volunteer Baseball team headed to the College World Series Finals. The first time since 1951. They got past Florida State today, 7-2. They will take on either Texas A&M or Florida, so it'll be an all-SEC final in the College World Series. That's the latest news and a little bit of sports. Traffic and weather there next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
It is The Drive. No Brian Wilson. Brian is off today. Back tomorrow. Matt Murphy in for Brian. It is 6:09 on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And normally you hear me from noon until 3. At least I hope you give me a shot at it. From noon until 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A part of this lively, live, and local lineup, including Dan Mandis, Nashville's Morning News, until 9. Chris Hand until noon. Brian Wilson from 3 until 7. Yours truly normally from noon until 3. Today, I'm on The Drive from 3 until 7. Happy to have you with us, and thank you for being a part of our evening hour. I think that this is the time of the day, right, Chris Weber, where Wilson transitions from good afternoon to good evening?
That's correct.
Is that does he do, in the wintertime months, he probably does that a little earlier, I bet.
Yeah, I think 5 o'clock during the standard time.
I mean, once it's dark outside, it's evening,
It's
right?
evening, yeah, might as well be.
Had you the ability, were Chris Weber king for a day or queen for a day? I don't want to label. I don't know what your pronouns are.
I appreciate that.
Would you just keep us on this time? This time?
Yes.
This time right now?
Yes.
I would too.
Yep. Just make this the time.
Man, oh man. And at a moment, but you have children.
Yeah.
Normally I'm told parents don't want to do this because the bus stop.
Well, mine drives, so.
You're old enough.
He's never home anyway.
Well, we've got a lot to get to before we say goodbye and say hello to Mark Levin. And hopefully your drive home's been going well. Hopefully you're already there. Whatever the case may be, we thank you for being a part of the show today. It is my episode 594 of these proceedings on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And as I described in the first hour, if you're watching on television, normally I'm not coiffed this way. These are locks for Trump, baby. I committed on March 1st that I was not cutting my hair again. I cannot believe that this is not taken off nationally. What I'm doing for my commitment to Donald Trump and his presidential aspirations and the future of the United States of America, that I'm willing to not cut my hair until we have a new president-elect. Day 109 and counting. That's what I'm giving. It's not even an affirmative act. It's a lack of an affirmative act that I'm doing by not cutting my hair. I'm proud of it, though. Locks for Trump Day 109 is ongoing. All right, a couple of baseball notes. One, congratulations. I thought of doing this cheap radio trick where I would tell you if you line them up on the telephone calls that I would say go Vols, because most of you know I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan. Our beloved Bulldogs, Weber, didn't make it.
Yeah.
To the World Series. I think we got beat by what? NC State? I think that's right. The Wolfpack.
That sounds right, yeah.
Sounds about right. I immediately stopped watching college baseball the moment that Georgia was out of the possibility of getting to Omaha.
I was just surprised they were even that close.
Yeah, frankly. I thought we were sucking over the last couple of years.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
We were good for a minute, and then it's been a minute. But how about those Vols, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, give them
the final
credit where due. I mean, look, here's the way I look at it. The Tennessee Volunteer fan base that is in abundance on this radio station listening right now, y'all are going to need something to root for in 2024 because once football season happens, I don't think that's it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of this football season.
You're starting early. It's only June 19th.
I'm
already
trying to keep
trash.
it. Look, it's fine. Y'all win every one of them until November.
Yeah.
That's all. That's fine. But congratulations to the Vols in all seriousness. They're going to who they playing?
It will either be Florida or Texas A&M. I think that's right.
I think Jay Harper had that for us, right? I think he's shaking his head.
That is correct. Texas A&M and Florida, they're playing right now. Yeah. They're about to play, so it'll be an all-SEC final.
There you go. And what is that, a best of three? A best of three series? I would assume they're not just going to play one winner-take-all game.
I'm not sure. I don't follow college baseball closely enough.
I would think that once you get to the finals that it would be a best of three series, but y'all on the super text line, just let me know. They'll tell me. They'll correct me if need be. And then there's this. Baseball legend Willie Matt. Man, I'd take 93 right now. I'm 50 years old, and if you gave me 93, I would take it in a heartbeat. What do you got, Harper? I see you putting on those headphones.
I was just going to say, as you apparently are going to be talking about a player that many consider perhaps the best all-around Major League player of all time.
Oh, come on.
Mr. Willie Mays.
I mean, Willie Mays, what? What is he? What? I mean, maybe he was pretty good as a batter, but what did he do in the field, Jay? I mean,
oh gosh, regarded as making the catch.
It was widely considered to be the greatest catch in baseball history. Yeah. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah,
but
me either. I mean, Jim Edmonds made some darn good ones too.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
But I was just going to weigh in that I got to see Willie Mays play in person when I was little.
Did you really?
Yeah, when. Lived in South Texas, used to go to Houston Astro games when they played in the Astrodome way back when. Saw Willie Mays play a couple of times, and of course, he would really put on a show at batting practice.
I bet he would.
Oh, yeah. He would just pop them over the fence one right after another. But, he was special to watch.
I'll tell you, living in Birmingham for the length of time that I did, I've had an opportunity. I think they're playing the game tonight at Rickwood Field, if I'm not mistaken. They're honoring the old Negro Leagues at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. Most might not know prior to this happening, Major League Baseball decided to go to Rickwood Field to play a game. They played at the Field of Dreams 1 or 2 seasons, and they're having a special game where the MLB is going to Rickwood. Rickwood is the oldest standing baseball park in the universe. I mean,
wow.
Right?
I did not know that.
So most people think it's Fenway. Fenway was built in 1912. Rickwood Field was built in 1910. The stories are just in abundance about the history of Rickwood Field. The players that have been there, I mean, it is a who's who of the Hall of Fame. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig barnstormed through there. Obviously, minor leaguers came up through both the what would then consider to be the major leagues or the white leagues and the Negro leagues. Willie Mays played there as a member of the Black Barons. My favorite story about Rickwood is that the Birmingham Barons were a minor league baseball team, and obviously it was segregated, so it was whites only. The Black Barons were the Negro League team in Birmingham. They shared playing time at Rickwood Field. They shared the field. So, the Birmingham Barons would be off on a road trip, and the Black Barons would come in, and they'd utilize the stadium. And when it was the Black Barons playing, they would allow anybody that wanted to fill the stands as they saw fit. And because sadly, it was a segregated society in Birmingham, Alabama during this time, and there was a quote-unquote colored section for black patrons to watch the games when the Birmingham Barons played. When the Black Barons played, they opened up the grandstand to anyone. Now, of course, at that time, racism being what it was, white people could sit wherever they wanted to, anytime that they wanted to, but during the Black Baron games, the black spectators could sit in the grandstands. Sadly, I would note that the race, well, I say sadly, it's kind of a sense of comeuppance. The white fans during the Black Barons were far more popular than the Birmingham Barons. They had players like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron before he transitioned to the major leagues, Willie Mays before he transitioned to the major leagues in the 1940s. Satchel Paige, just the names, Matt Gibson, go on. And the Birmingham Barons, as the story goes, were horrible. The Black Barons were awesome, and everybody wanted to watch the Black Barons. And so these white people had to go out into the sun and sit in what were the colored section to watch the Barons play. It was just a nice turn, a nice comeuppance in a time where people didn't have a lot of equality back in the day in Birmingham, Alabama. So that's how popular the Black Barons were, that everybody wanted to see the Black Barons. And, Birmingham Barons, whatever. But Willie and Hank and some of these players that obviously made names for themselves above and beyond the Negro Leagues, they were the time, man. They were what everybody wanted to see. Mays was supposed to be at the game tonight, but his family informed Major League Baseball some weeks ago that he was not going to be able to make it. So sadly, they knew that he would not be there. He was already expected to miss the game, but he was going to be and will be honored, obviously, at the game tonight in Birmingham, Alabama. I would tell you this. If you are a baseball fan, if you are a fan of history or a combination of both, make yourself time to go to Rickwood Field and see it. It's a slice of history. A lot of old movies have been there. The movie Cobb, a lot of those scenes were filmed there. A lot of 42, which is the Jackie Robinson story, filmed there. A lot of stories about baseball in the 19-teens, 20s, and 30s utilized Rickwood Field as a filming location because it is largely exactly the same as it was in the 1940s, 1950s. There's not been a lot of revitalization, and now they look to preserve it more than to revitalize it. So anyway, Willie Mays, 93 years old. You'd take 93, wouldn't you?
Oh, any day.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
I don't think I'll make it, but I'll cross my fingers.
I mean, heck, the way things are going, I'd take 53. 20 minutes after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
The very first tropical storm of the hurricane season, it's being felt along the Texas coast. We'll have that story, and we'll also have today's closing money news. That's all coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Jay Harper. 6:24 right now on the drive. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased to have you with us. Open phone lines available for you if you so desire. 615-737-9986. I keep them open all the time during the noon to 3 hours. I know Brian has more specified locations for his caller segments. But for me, it's fair game at any point of the proceedings. 615-737-9986. It is Juneteenth. I should note that. Juneteenth need not be controversial. I understand that there's some consternation. Scott DesJarlais mentioned it during his appearance. There's some consternation about making it yet another federal holiday, another moment in time where we don't have productivity on the part of the federal government. We have business models shutting down for the day and giving opportunity to have people have another holiday. I don't necessarily have any judgment about that one way or the other, except to say that I don't think the federal government or any government should be dictating to businesses when they have holidays. Our business chose to have this as a company holiday. Obviously, we're still here, and because we're going to be here on most every day, regardless of whether or not it's a company holiday. Somebody will be in the building. That said, I don't think that it should be controversial in terms of when I was thinking about this. I asked Chris Webber before the show when you first were aware that Juneteenth was a thing. And what'd you say, about 4 years ago or thereabouts?
Seems like 4 years or so.
Right. My first awareness of Juneteenth was a negative one because I'm from Georgia originally, of course. And I was in Alabama at the time, but I was traveling back to Atlanta to visit a friend, and I encountered a Juneteenth street party that I was unaware of, that apparently the Atlanta PD was very intimately familiar with. And they had been dealing with it for a number of years. And it eventually became this situation that they had to deal with because it grew. These Juneteenth or June 19th celebrations grew in Atlanta to the point that they were clogging up traffic and clogging down the street. And, they were illegally parking their cars in the streets and just having a party, the celebrants. And so eventually Atlanta had to shut it down. Well, immediately when Atlanta, and this is probably 10, 15 years ago now, when Atlanta went about the business of shutting down these illegal celebrations that were clogging up the streets, literally closing down streets illegally, they were immediately accused of racism because the suggestion was, well, you're only doing this because we're trying to celebrate the end of slavery on Juneteenth. And, no amount of explanation. Now you've screamed racism, so no amount of explanation is going to suffice the effort to get back to a semblance of law and order. That was my first awareness of Juneteenth. But I would say this. Juneteenth, as a holiday, it commemorates the end of slavery. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, obviously. Who wouldn't want to celebrate the elimination of slavery, not just in African-American history, but in American history? To be more specific, for those of you interested, the state of Texas had not recognized the emancipation of the slaves. Obviously, the South did not until the end of the war, but it was not until June 19th of 1865 that General Gordon Granger led a Union army into Galveston, Texas. And it was there that he announced the emancipation of all enslaved African Americans in that region. And those African Americans recognized that not only were they free then, they had been free for some time. And so it was at that point commemorated. I don't know if it was recognized from then on. There seems to be a desire to back it up. And I don't think it hurts or harms in any way the specialness of remembering the day to say that this is, for the most part, a modern celebration. There seems to be a desire to say, oh, no, we were doing this 40 years ago or 50 years ago or 80 years ago when no evidence presents itself that that was happening. But that day has meant something particularly to the African-American community for some time. And I don't have a bit of problem with it being a holiday. I do think that we have too many holidays. I do think that we need to monitor the amount of times that we recognize an official holiday. Is it I don't know if it's an official holiday for the state of Tennessee. I would
assume it is.
I would assume it is, but I don't know. It certainly is a federal holiday and has been since 2021. When we return, I'll double down on the Texas Children's Hospital story and fill in some of the gaps there. I'll tell you my story about two restaurants. One, a restaurant that is closing in Hollywood, California, and another, a vegan place that started selling meat that is soon to close based on the reaction to their selling of meat. We'll do that and see what you've got going on the membersnutrition.com Super Text line. That's all to come at 6:30 on Super Talk.
Good evening. It is 6:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got clouds. We're down to 84 degrees. We'll get another traffic report, and we'll have a weather forecast for you. And the key word with weather, hot. So that's coming up. Residents in Galveston, Texas, though, they're getting wet. They're already seeing coastal flooding from Tropical Storm Alberto. As much as 5 to 10 inches of rain's been expected in some areas along the Texas coast, and even higher totals are possible. Governor Greg Abbott there, he issued a disaster declaration for 51 counties. This Galveston resident said he expected some rising water, but not like this.
Had no idea it was going to come from below. You know, we thought the rain was going to come down on top, but we didn't know it was going to come up through the storm drains.
The storm actually expected to hit the Mexican coast with the eye, if you will, of the tropical storm, but the Texas coast obviously feeling the effects. Let's turn now to today's money news. We do that with Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. The U.S. financial markets are closed for the Juneteenth holiday, but markets around the world were open for business as usual. They closed mixed after Wall Street markets continue to tick to more records lately on the most recent signs that the economy may be slowing, but not necessarily heading for a recession. NVIDIA's journey skyward in the stock market has reached another milestone. The chip maker is now the most valuable company in the S&P 500, with investors pricing it at over $3.3 trillion. Demand for NVIDIA semiconductors, which are used to power artificial intelligence applications, have been soaring. The company's revenue more than tripled in the latest quarter from the same period a year earlier. It's been over a year since the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act was signed into law, but the legal organization, A Better Balance, has many women say they're still dealing with employers who don't know about it, misunderstand it, or simply refuse to comply.
That is the latest news. We've got traffic and weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WT and Matt Murphy. And you until Mark Levin, the great one coming up in moments. No Wilson today, but Brian will be back in the chair tomorrow starting at 3 o'clock. I'll be back in my normal spot from noon until 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WT, and live and local conversation starts bright and early at 5 a.m. and extends all the way until 7 p.m., and we appreciate you spending every single moment with us. For those of you curious, I realized that I failed to make mention of it because, frankly, I had forgotten about it while he was sitting here. Have you seen the video of Congressman John Rose giving a speech before Congress and his son sitting behind him?
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah.
So he made reference to it, and apparently he told his son, I forget what his son's name is, Gus? I think that's right. Or Guy? Guy. I think it's Guy. He told his son to sit there and smile at his little brother. That's what John said that he told him.
Okay.
And he did. He did. I just posted it up on my social media at Matt Murphy Show on the X machine. If you want to go watch it, the full thing is 5 minutes. The full speech is 5 minutes. But if you watch the first minute or so of it, you'll see the best part where John's son is sitting behind him in the hallowed environment of the House of Representatives chamber. And that young man, I think he expresses what a lot of us feel when we watch Congress in action. Just, you have to go see it for yourself. Speaking of viral, I thought that, you know what? I have more important, or as important things to get to, but I thought as important as anything, if you've not heard this thing, you need to. It is a little bit of a viral video that's going around. It's kind of the anthem of the summer right now, and I thought maybe we'd play a little bit of this for you. Thank you to the Bengals. And they were the inspiration for this. It's called Walk Like Joe Biden. Here he goes off the bike. Cigarette. Video makes it a lot better. There he goes. He's a Roomba. And he doesn't know which way to go. Oh, he almost fell. Oh, and he's... Which way do I go? Whoa, easy. It's just that's Joe, right? Oh, there's the Corvette. Oh, there's Merrick Garland protecting good old Joe. I don't know who's responsible for this. If I did, I would tell you. But it's up on my Twitter feed right now. If you go to @MattMurphy Show, you can see the video that accompanies the video that accompanies the record. It's pretty good. That
is good.
That's Walk Like. It's a Mug Club, and I think it's an association with Steven Crowder. If the last part of this video is any indication, so that's pretty good. Walk Like a Joe Biden. All right, more serious matters. Just to real quick visit this because I promised that I would. The question is simple, and I don't claim to have any information. And I don't have necessarily any inside information. I do have a couple of inside sources that are sleuthing around Vanderbilt University because they claimed 2 years ago that they were pausing, quote unquote, their gender affirmation surgery. Now, that's the term that they use. These are sex change surgeries. So I would say on one side of the argument, they call it gender affirmation surgery. And on the other side, we could easily call it child mutilation. And for one group of people, the only appropriate way to refer to this is gender affirmation. We're doing the physical things necessary to affirm the gender of the 10-year-old. Blech. Gross. I would call it genital mutilation or child mutilation because you are taking perfectly healthy body parts and removing them from a child because they say that in their mind they're a gender that they were not born. One way or the other, it was originally exposed by Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. He got some information and some video and audio evidence to corroborate the information that Vanderbilt University Medical Center was performing these gender mutilation or genital mutilation or sex change surgeries on children. Vanderbilt University Medical Center temporarily halted those, at least according to them, on patients under the age of 18, while according to Vanderbilt, they, quote, review national recommendations. Now, since that time, the Tennessee General Assembly has passed Senate Bill 1, House Bill 1, and now signed by the governor, now the law of the land, that we aren't doing any of that in the state of Tennessee anymore. Well, that should be where it begins and where it ends. However, let's go on out to Texas, where whistleblowers at Texas Children's Hospital have sounded the alarm that despite the fact that Texas has a very similar law to the state of Tennessee with regard to what you can and may not do on underage children in terms of genital mutilation, they're still doing it. Christopher Rufo is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and he blew the roof off this thing when a whistleblower came forward and informed him the whistleblower is named Ethan Haim. Rufo reported that this whistleblower alleged that Texas Children's Hospital continued to provide what they referred to as gender-affirming care to minor children despite it being against the law in the state of Texas. Haim recognized that what he was doing was in some way violating HIPAA laws. And since he reported this information to Christopher Rufo, he has been visited by agents of the U.S. Department of Justice. He's been indicted on 4 felony counts of violating the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. Now, this report came last year, and it revealed that TCH failed to meet its own goal of ceasing the transition procedures to children, and it goes against the laws of the state of Texas. Attorney General Ken Paxton issued an opinion last year stating that the procedures for gender transition of a child meet the standard for child abuse in Texas. In other words, not only should you stop, you must stop doing these procedures because they are in violation of the law in the state of Texas, according to the Texas Attorney General. Following that issuance, the Texas Children's Hospital released a statement that said it had, quote, made a decision to stop its gender modification treatment. Well, the 2 whistleblower accounts are telling quite a different story about all of this. And I say 2 accounts because there is another one that has come forward. In addition to Ethan Haim, there is another whistleblower by the name of Vanessa Savage, and I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. It's Sivadge, Savage or Savage. And according to Vanessa Savage, she detailed that the Texas Children's Hospital was, quote, unlawfully billing the state Medicaid program for the purposes of child gender modification. In other words, they are intentionally at the Texas Children's Hospital. The accusation by these whistleblowers is that they are intentionally falsifying medical records and that they continue to break the law to continue practicing genital mutilation on children. The justification is if they don't, these kids will commit some sort of self-harm against themselves, which is not supported by statistical study or fact, any more so than children are already doing. The consequences of this type of permanently altering activity far outweigh the risk that a person who is truly and genuinely gender dysphoric might do harm to themselves, in my opinion. The reason I bring this up right now is to ask a simple question. Who is minding the hen house at Vanderbilt Medical Center? I don't believe for a moment that some of these individuals over at Vanderbilt do not wish to continue their, quote, gender-affirming surgery. That's what they would call it. What I want to know is who's monitoring them and how. If HIPAA laws prevent them from revealing this information, then how exactly are we monitoring whether or not they continue to offer these types of procedures to people who aren't talking? If it took a whistleblower in Texas, will it take a whistleblower in Tennessee? It remains to be seen. It also remains to be seen, very different subject here, whether or not Molly Englehart will continue operating her LA restaurant, as once she was forced to close her formerly vegan restaurant this past Sunday because she changed the menu and offered meat and dairy products. Molly Englehart said that she changed the focus of her Sage Regenerative Kitchen and Brewery, and she offered some meat products on the menu. In response, some of her vegan patrons who could still get vegan products on the menu were so upset that she was offering meat that they shut her restaurant down. She had to close down for the day as a result. She said, I believe there are certain other places that they could put their passion, but so be it. They called her an animal killer, and they wrote it in chalk right on her restaurant floor. The tolerant left in action. It's 6:50 on Super Talk.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Well, if you don't think raising the minimum wage to $20 an hour in California has any consequence, the Hollywood Arby's is closing after 55 years on Sunset Boulevard. 55 years in operation. 1969, just before we landed on the moon, they opened their doors. They're closing their doors, and they stated the reason, the final nail in the coffin, $20 of minimum wage. There you go, folks. Bidenomics. Joe Biden's America. We're back tomorrow at noon. Brian's back at 3. Until then, so long, everybody. Mark Levin coming up next. Have a good evening.